PMI SP Scheduling Practice Tests, Full Exam Prep. Welcome to PMI SP Scheduling Practice Tests, a full exam prep course for the year 2026. Do you want to pass the scheduling exam quickly, without reading hundreds of boring book pages? You can find my complete practice test link in the description or the very first comment. Use the discount coupon for the complete practice questions to help you study much better today. These questions come with full explanations, which will help you get your certification on the first try. Please leave helpful suggestions in the comment section below, and do not forget to subscribe today. I want to share some great information with you to help you learn all concepts quickly. When you read the questions on your test, try to find the main problem right away. Read the last line of the question first, because it tells you exactly what to find. Section 1. We will start our lesson right now by talking about the main project schedule management plan. This plan is a very important document because it tells us how to build the schedule. It gives us all the rules we need to make sure the project finishes on time. You need to know what tools to use when you create your schedule for the team. After we finish making the management plan, we need to find out what work to do. We do this by defining all the activities, which are small pieces of work to finish. You break the big project work down into smaller parts, so it is easier to manage. We use a special work breakdown structure to help us find every single activity we need. Once you have a list of all activities, we must put them in the right order. This step is called sequencing the activities, and it shows what task comes first or second. Some tasks must wait for other tasks to finish before the team can start doing them. You can draw a network diagram to see this, and it helps the whole team understand. Next, we have to guess how much time each small activity will take to finish completely. We call this step estimating activity durations, and it is a big part of scheduling work. You can ask the people doing the work, because they know how long it usually takes. Sometimes we look at older projects we did before, to see how much time they took. There are different ways to estimate the time, and you need to learn them for tests. Analogous estimating is a very fast way to guess, but it is not always very accurate. Parametric estimating uses a math formula to guess time, like multiplying hours by the total units. Three-point estimating uses 3 different guesses to find an average time that is more realistic. We ask for the best case time, the worst case time, and the most likely time. Then we put those 3 numbers in a math formula to calculate a good final guess. This helps us handle risks in our project schedule and keeps our team on track better. You should practice doing this math on paper so you are ready for your scheduling exam. Now we must look at the resources we have, like the workers and the physical materials. If we have a very small team of workers, the project will take a longer time. We need to write down what resources we need for every single activity on our list. You can use a resource calendar to check when your team members are ready to work. After we have the order of tasks and times, we can finally build the project schedule. We put all this data into our scheduling software to create a model for the project. The software will show us the critical path, which is the longest path through our project. If any task on the critical path is late, the whole project will be very late. You must watch the critical path very closely to make sure the work stays on time. Sometimes we have a schedule that is too long, and we need to make it shorter. We can use a technique called crashing the schedule to speed up the work very quickly. Crashing means we add more workers or money to finish the critical path tasks much faster. Another way to make the schedule faster is a trick called fast-tracking the project tasks. Fast-tracking means we do things at the same time, instead of waiting for one task. This can add more risk to your project work, because people might make more mistakes easily. You must choose the best way for your team when you need to save some time. We also need to think about float or slack, which is extra time for some tasks. If a task has extra time to be late, it is not on the critical path. You can let those tasks wait a little bit and focus your energy on urgent work. Understanding how to find this extra time will help you answer many questions on the test. The project schedule is never perfect on the first day, so we must watch it always. We compare the work we did with the plan to see if we are running late. If we are late, we must fix the problem to get the schedule back on track. You have to talk to your team every week to ask them how the work goes. Managing a project schedule is a big job, but it is very fun when you learn. You act like a guide for the whole team, showing them the way to the finish. We use reports to tell the big bosses how the project schedule is doing right now. Clear communication is a huge part of your job when you manage a big project schedule. Always keep a record of the changes you make, so you know what happened before today. We call this updating the project schedule baseline, and it requires a formal approval to do. A baseline is the original plan we all agreed on before we started doing the work. You measure all your progress against this baseline to see if you are failing or winning. You will see many questions about the schedule baseline, so you must study it very well. Remember that any big change needs a formal review by the people in charge of rules. If you just change the plan without telling anyone, your whole project will be in trouble. We follow a strict change control process every time to keep our schedule safe and clear. There are different software tools to build schedules, but the logic is always the same everywhere. You must understand the real concepts of scheduling work before you click buttons on the computer. The PMI exam tests your knowledge of these rules, not your skill with a specific software. I want you to focus on the big ideas, like how tasks connect to each other. Practice drawing a simple network diagram on a paper to see how the critical path works. This will train your brain to see the connections, and you will pass the exam easily. We will go through some practice questions right now to test your knowledge of scheduling rules. Read each question slowly and think about the answer before you look at my explanation below. 1. What document tells you exactly how to manage and control the whole project schedule today? The schedule management plan tells you all the rules for the project schedule. This main plan guides the entire team and gives instructions for building the schedule model correctly. 2. What do we call the longest sequence of tasks that decides the project finish date? We always call this long sequence of tasks the critical path of the project schedule. Any delay on the critical path will automatically delay the final finish date of the project. 3. Which estimating technique uses the actual time from an older project to guess new times? Analogous estimating uses the data from a past project to guess the new task time. It is a very fast way to guess the duration, but it is not perfectly accurate. 4. What is the name of the extra time a task can be delayed without causing trouble? This extra waiting time is simply called total float or slack in the project schedule. Tasks with float are not on the critical path, so they can wait a little bit. 5. Which schedule compression technique adds more resources to finish the critical path tasks much faster? Crashing is the technique where we add more money or workers to speed up work. This method always costs more money, but it gets the project done in a shorter time. 6. What do we call the process of doing tasks at the same time to save days? Doing scheduled tasks at the exact same time is a technique called fast-tracking the project. This approach saves a lot of time, but it brings much more risk to the project. 7. What is the approved original version of the schedule that we use to measure our progress? The approved original version is always known as the schedule baseline for the project team. You need to get formal approval from the boss before you can change this original baseline. 8. Which mathematical estimate uses the best, worst, and most likely times to find an average? 3-point estimating uses those 3 guesses to find a much better average time frame. This technique is very helpful because it thinks about the risks and uncertainties in the work. 9. What type of logical relationship means a task must finish before the next task can start? This is called a finish-to-start relationship, and it is the most common connection used. You cannot start building the roof of a house until you finish building the strong walls. 10. What document shows a list of all the small activities needed to complete the whole project? The activity list is the main document showing every single task we need to finish completely. We create this detailed list by breaking down the work packages from our work breakdown structure. 11. If you need to delay a linked task for 3 days, what do we call this? A delay between 2 connected tasks is simply called a lag in the project schedule. We use a lag time when we need to wait for concrete to dry completely first. 12. What do we call an early start of a task that depends on an older task? An early start of a connected task is called a lead in the project schedule model. A lead lets you begin the second task early, saving some time on the project schedule. 13. What visual chart shows the scheduled tasks as bars across a simple timeline of the project? A Gantt chart is a visual tool that uses horizontal bars to show the work schedule. It is very easy to read, so we use it to show the full schedule to bosses. 14. What tool helps you decide what days your team members are actually available to do work? A resource calendar tells you exactly when people and machines are ready to work for you. You must look at this calendar before you assign any tasks to your project team members. 15. What process takes the activity list and puts the items in a logical order of work? Sequence activities is the process of putting all the project tasks in the right working order. This step creates a visual network diagram, showing how every task connects to the other tasks. 16. What kind of connection forces you to start a task only after another task has started? This special rule is called a start-to-start relationship in the project network logic model. It means both tasks can run at the same time, once the first one officially begins. 17. How do we describe a significant point or event in the project that has zero duration? A very important event with zero duration is always known as a milestone in the schedule. Milestones help us check our overall progress, without taking up any actual time on the calendar. 18. What estimating technique uses statistical data like lines of code to calculate the task time mathematically? Parametric estimating uses this statistical data to calculate a very accurate guess for the task time. You multiply the quantity of work by the hours needed to get the total task duration. You can find the link to get the full course right down in the video description. Please check it out today, so you can practice more questions and pass your big exam. Section 2, where we learn more about scheduling tests. I am so happy you are here to study for your big certification. Today we will talk about the network diagram and how to build it. This is a very big topic for anyone taking the scheduling exam soon. You need to draw a map of work to show how tasks connect. This map is called a precedence diagram, and it uses boxes and arrows. The boxes represent the actual work tasks that your team needs to do. The arrows show the logical order of how those tasks connect to each other. There are 4 ways to connect tasks when you draw this map out. We already talked about finish to start, which is the most common way. Now we must look at finish to finish, a very different kind of link. This means the first task must finish before the second task can finish. You also need to know start to start for your big scheduling test. This rule means the first task must start before the second task starts. The last one is start to finish, but we almost never use it. It means the first task must start before the second task can finish. When you connect all these boxes, you create a long path of work. You have to find the longest path, because that is the critical path. If you have a delay on this path, your whole project is delayed. You have 0 extra time on this path, so you must watch it. Sometimes you have 2 critical paths, which makes the project very risky today. More critical paths mean more chances that something will go wrong and delay. You have to look at the other paths that have some extra time. This extra time is called total float, and it gives you a break. We calculate float by doing a forward pass and a backward pass math. The forward pass gives us the early start and the early finish dates. The backward pass gives us the late start and the late finish dates. You subtract the early start from late start to find the total float. Another type of extra time is free float, which is a little different. Free float is the time a task can delay without delaying the next task. This is very useful to know when you manage a small team daily. You can let a task wait if it has a lot of free float. Now we must talk about our team resources and how to manage them. Sometimes we give one person too much work to do in one day. This means the resource is overallocated, and we must fix this big problem. We use resource optimization techniques to make the work fair for every person. One technique is called resource leveling, and it changes the schedule finish date. We move the tasks around to fix things, but the project takes longer. The critical path will usually change when you do this kind of leveling. You only do this when limits on workers are more important than time. Another technique is called resource smoothing, which is much safer for the deadline. We only move tasks that have extra float, so the finish date stays. You do not change the critical path when you use the smoothing trick. This means you might not fix all problems, but you keep the deadline. You also need to think about calendar dates when you make the schedule. Some days are holidays for the workers, and no work will happen then. You must put these holidays in the system, so the software knows it. If you forget the holidays entirely, your schedule finish date will be wrong. We also use something called a schedule baseline to measure our daily progress. This is the approved version of the schedule that everyone agrees to follow. You compare the real work you did to this baseline every single week. If the real work is slower, you have a negative schedule variance today. A negative variance means you are losing time, and you must act fast. You might need to crash the schedule to get back on track again. If your variance is a positive number, you are actually ahead of schedule. This is a very good thing, and you should tell your big bosses. We also look at the schedule performance index to see how we do. If this index number is less than 1, you are running very late. If the index number is exactly 1, you are perfectly on time today. If the number is more than 1, you are doing a great job. We use agile scheduling for some projects when the work changes very often. In Agile, we work in small cycles, which are called sprints or iterations. We do a little bit of work and then show it to customers. This helps us change the plan easily if the customer wants something new. We use a release planning board to map out the big project parts. This shows the timeline for the whole year in a very simple way. You do not need a strict critical path when you do agile work. You just focus on giving the customer value as quickly as you can. Many times we have unknown risks that can mess up our perfect schedule. We use a technique called Monte Carlo simulation to guess what might happen. A computer runs the schedule thousands of times to find the best dates. It tells us the probability of finishing on time, which is very helpful. You need to save some extra time, just in case bad things happen. We call this extra time a reserve, and it protects our deadline date. A contingency reserve is for the known risks that we already identified early. A management reserve is for unknown risks that we did not see coming. The boss controls the management reserve time, so you must ask for permission. You can manage the contingency reserve yourself, because it is in your baseline. Adding these reserves to your schedule model makes it much more realistic today. Always plan for some bad days, because no project goes perfectly right ever. Good project managers always track the data using a special software program daily. These programs help you update the status and print out nice visual reports. You must share these reports with everyone, so the team knows the truth. Now let us move to the questions, so you can test your brain. I want you to take a deep breath, because you are learning fast. We will look at some more questions now, to test your new skills. Read each question very carefully today, before you check the correct answer below. This practice will make you confident when you sit for the real exam. 1. What diagram uses boxes for tasks and arrows to show the logical connections? This is called a precedence diagramming method or a project network diagram. This visual map helps the whole team see the order of work, and it clearly shows the complex task connections. 2. Which logical relationship means a task must finish before the second task finishes? This is known as a finish-to-finish relationship in the schedule model. You cannot finish writing the final software code until you finish testing all the previous software bugs entirely. 3. What do we call a path in the network diagram that has zero float? A path with zero float is always called the critical path of the project. The critical path dictates the absolute shortest time in which the whole project can be fully completed by the team. 4. What mathematical calculation tells you the early start and early finish dates? The forward pass calculation gives you these early start and early finish dates. You add task durations from the start to the end to find out how early you can do the work. 5. What calculation helps you find the late start and late finish for tasks? We use the backward pass calculation to find the late start and finish dates. You subtract durations from the end date to the start to see how late tasks can safely begin today. 6. What type of float can delay a task without delaying the next linked task? This special extra time is called free float in the project schedule plan. Free float gives you a lot of flexibility when you need to assign small tasks to your busy team members. 7. What resource technique moves tasks around but changes the project final finish date? Resource leveling changes the dates to make sure workers are not doing too much. This method fixes overall location by moving tasks, but it almost always pushes the final project deadline much further away. 8. Which resource optimization technique keeps the critical path and the final deadline safe? Resource smoothing is the technique that protects the deadline and the critical path completely. It only moves tasks within their allowed float time, so the project finish date will absolutely never change at all. 9. What indicator tells you if the project schedule is running late or running fast? The Schedule Performance Index is a great number that shows your true speed. If the index is exactly 1.0, your whole team is working perfectly according to the original approved plan. 10. What extra time protects the schedule from known risks that might happen later? We use a contingency reserve to protect against the known risks we found. You control this extra time, and you add it directly into your schedule baseline to keep the project completely safe. 11. What extra time protects the project from unknown risks we did not plan for? The management reserve is a special time buffer for totally unknown future risks. You do not control this reserve, and you must ask senior management for permission before you use this extra time. 12. What computer method runs the schedule thousands of times to predict finish dates? The Monte Carlo simulation uses a computer to guess the best finish dates. This complex computer model looks at many risks to tell you the real probability of finishing the project on time. 13. What kind of scheduling uses small cycles called sprints to do the work? Agile scheduling uses short sprints or iterations to finish the work in parts. This method is extremely helpful when the customer wants to change the project requirements very often during the working months. 14. What visual tool tracks the high-level timeline for an agile project release? A release planning board shows the big timeline for all the agile work. It helps the team and the customer see the goals without needing a complex and rigid critical path to follow. 15. If your schedule variance is a negative number, what does that mean for you? A negative variance means your project work is currently running behind the planned schedule. You must investigate the big problem right away, and maybe use schedule compression to catch up on the lost time. 16. What is the name of the tool where you list worker holidays and vacations? A resource calendar is the exact place where you list all worker holidays. The scheduling software needs this calendar data, so it does not assign hard work on days when people are resting. 17. What do we call a task that has a lot of connections to other tasks? A task with many connections is called a critical node or a hub task. You must manage these connected tasks very carefully, because any delay here will quickly cause problems for many other tasks. 18. If the early start is day 2 and duration is 4, what is early finish? The early finish is day 5, if you count the days of work correctly. You start on morning 2, work full days 2, 3, 4, and 5, so you finish at the end completely. Welcome back to our third part, where we will look at how to control the schedule. I am so glad you are staying with me to learn these important rules today. Control is all about watching the work and making sure nobody gets lost. You are like a captain of a ship, looking at the map every single hour. We use a special method called earned value management to see our true progress. This method uses 3 main numbers to tell us if we are doing well. The first number is planned value, which is the cost of work planned. The second number is earned value, which is the value of work finished. The third number is actual cost, which is the money we spent so far. By looking at these 3 numbers, we can see the health of our project. If the earned value is less than the planned value, we are late. You must explain this to your team, so they can work a bit faster. We also need to look at the schedule variance, which we call SV. To find the SV number, you subtract the planned value from earned value. If the answer is a negative number, your project schedule is very sick. A positive number means your team is faster than the original project plan. Next, we calculate the schedule performance index, which we call the SPI. To find this number, you divide the earned value by the planned value. An SPI of 0.8 means you are only doing 80% of work. You want this number to be 1 or higher, to stay very safe. Sometimes the project scope changes, and people want to add more new work. This is called scope creep, and it can destroy your perfect project schedule. Every time someone wants a change, you must check the schedule impact first. If the new work takes 10 days, your finish date will move 10 days. You must use a formal change request to update the project schedule baseline. Do not just say yes to everyone, because your schedule will become a mess. Write down the change and ask the change control board for their approval. This keeps your project professional and protects your reputation as a good manager. We also need to talk about data and how we collect it daily. You should ask your team for status updates at the end of every week. Ask them how many hours they worked and how much work is left. This helps you update the schedule model with the most accurate information today. We use a tool called a burn-down chart, especially in the Agile project world. This chart shows how much work is remaining on a simple downward line. If the line goes down to 0, it means all the work is finished. It is a very easy way to see if the team will finish on time. There is also a burn-up chart, which shows the total work finished so far. The top line shows the total scope, and the bottom line shows progress. If the total scope line moves up, it means more work was added. This helps you see if scope creep is happening to your project right now. You should also look at the trend analysis to predict the future work. Trend analysis looks at past performance to see where the project is going. If you were late last month and this month, you will likely be late. You can use this data to warn the bosses before the project fails completely. Another great tool is called variance analysis, which explains why we are late. Maybe a machine broke down, or a team member was sick for a week. You must find the root cause of the delay to fix it properly today. Knowing the reason helps you plan better for the next part of the work. We also use something called a performance review to talk about the project. You meet with the team and the stakeholders to share the schedule status. Show them the charts and the numbers so everyone knows the real truth. Honest communication helps everyone trust you, even when the project is running late. In some projects, we use a technique called on-demand scheduling for tasks. This is often used in Kanban systems, where work is pulled when ready. You do not have a big master schedule, but you move small cards. Each card represents a task, moving from to do, to doing, to done. This helps the team stay focused on the most important work right now. It prevents the team from doing too many things at the same exact time. You can see the bottlenecks easily, where the work is getting stuck today. Fixing these bottlenecks helps the workflow much faster through the whole system. You should always keep your project documents updated after every status meeting today. This includes the activity attributes and the milestone list for the big project. If a milestone is reached, celebrate with your team to keep them happy. Happy teams work much harder, and they help you keep the schedule safe. Now let us look at some practice questions for this part of the lesson. Think about the math and the tools we just talked about in this section. I know you can do this, so let us start the questions right now. Read the explanation carefully to learn the logic behind every single correct answer. 1. What math formula do you use to find the schedule variance today? You subtract the planned value from the earned value to find variance. This number tells you in dollars or hours how far ahead or behind you are compared to your original project plan. 2. If your SPI is 1.2, is your project early or late? Your project is running ahead of schedule because the number is over 1. An SPI greater than 1 means you are finishing more work than you originally planned to finish by this specific date. 3. What chart shows the remaining work as a line moving towards 0? A burn-down chart shows the work left to do in a sprint. It is a very popular agile tool that helps the team see if they will finish all their tasks before the cycle ends. 4. What do we call the problem when work is added without approval? Adding work without any formal process is called scope creep in projects. Scope creep is very dangerous because it adds more tasks to your schedule without giving you any extra time or money. 5. What analysis looks at past performance to predict the future finish date? Trend analysis looks at the history of work to predict future results. By looking at how the team performed over many months, you can guess if they will finish the project on time. 6. What is the name of the group that approves schedule baseline changes? The Change Control Board is the group that reviews and approves changes. They look at how a change affects the whole project before they give you permission to update your official schedule baseline. 7. What chart shows both the total work and the finished work together? A burn-up chart shows the total project scope and the work completed. This chart is great for showing how much work is done, and if the total amount of work is increasing over time. 8. What do we call the process of finding the reason for delays? Finding the reason for a project delay is called doing variance analysis. You must understand why the project is behind the plan, so you can take the right steps to fix the problem. 9. What scheduling method pulls work only when the team has enough space? On-demand scheduling or Kanban pulls work when the team is ready. This method limits the amount of work in progress, which helps the team finish tasks much faster without getting overwhelmed today. 10. If earned value is 500 and planned value is 600, calculate SV. The schedule variance is negative 100, which means you are late. Since the earned value is less than the planned value, you have not finished as much work as you expected to finish. 11. What value represents the estimated cost of work actually finished so far? The earned value represents the value of the work that is done. It is the most important number in progress measurement, because it shows what the team has actually achieved on the project. 12. What do you call a formal meeting to show schedule status reports? This meeting is called a performance review or a project status meeting. It is a time for the manager to show the data and discuss any problems that are making the project schedule run late. 13. What document must you update after a milestone is finished on time? You must update the milestone list to show that the event is finished. Keeping this list updated helps the stakeholders see the big wins, and it keeps the project moving toward the final goal. 14. What tool tracks the work as it moves through different stages? A Kanban board or a task board tracks work moving through stages. It usually has columns like to do and in progress, so everyone can see the status of every task at a glance. 15. If your SPI is 0.5, how much work are you doing? You are only doing 50% of the work you planned today. This is a very bad sign for a project manager, and it means you need to find a way to work much faster. 16. What analysis helps you find the very first cause of a delay? Root cause analysis is the way to find the very first cause. Instead of fixing the symptoms, you find the real problem so that the schedule delay does not happen again in the future. 17. What is the value of work that should be done right now? The planned value is the value of work that should be finished. This number comes from your schedule baseline, and it tells you exactly where you should be on the project timeline today. 18. What do you do if a team member says a task is late? You must update the schedule model and then analyze the impact immediately. You need to see if this delay affects the critical path, so you can tell the bosses if the finish date will change. You can get my complete practice test link in the description of this video. Please check the first comment for a discount coupon to help you study more. Welcome to the fourth part of our course, where we talk about the tools you need. I am very proud of you for sticking with me to learn these schedule secrets. Today we will look at the different types of scheduling software and models. You need to know how these systems work to be a great project leader. First, let us talk about the schedule model data, which is a big folder. This folder holds all the notes about how you made your project dates. It has the list of activities, the resource needs, and all your big guesses. You must keep this data organized, so you can answer questions from the boss. We also use something called a project schedule network diagram, which is very visual. This diagram shows how the work flows from the start to the very end. It helps you see the dependencies, which are the links between different tasks today. You can find the critical path easily by looking at this map of work. There are also different types of schedule presentations for different people to see. A milestone chart is very simple, and it only shows the big important dates. The senior managers love milestone charts because they do not have much time. They just want to see if the big goals are being met on time. The project team usually likes the bar charts, which are also called Gantt charts. These charts show exactly when each task starts and when it should finish today. It shows the duration of the work using a long bar on the calendar. This helps the workers plan their weeks and stay focused on their own tasks. Another tool is the project schedule network diagram, with date information added in. This is much more detailed than a simple chart, because it shows logic. It shows the early and late dates for every single box on the diagram. You use this for heavy analysis, when the project is very complex and large. We also need to talk about resource leveling and why we use it often. If two tasks need the same person at once, that person will be tired. Resource leveling moves the tasks, so the person only does one thing. This keeps your team happy and healthy, which is very good for the project. Sometimes we use a technique called what-if scenario analysis to plan for trouble today. We ask ourselves what happens if a big shipment of wood is late. We change the dates in the software to see how the finish date moves. This helps us prepare a backup plan before the problem actually happens in real life. We also use the critical chain method, which is a bit different from pathing. The critical chain looks at both task logic and the availability of your resources. It adds buffers at the end of the project to protect the final date. This method helps prevent people from wasting time when they have extra float. A project buffer is placed at the very end of the whole critical chain. Feeding buffers are placed where non-critical paths join the main critical chain path. These buffers act like a soft cushion to catch any small delays that happen. You manage these buffers daily to make sure the project stays on track. You should also know about the different types of dependencies for your big exam. Mandatory dependencies are required by law or because of the physical work type. You cannot paint a wall until you have actually built the wall first today. We sometimes call these hard logic because you cannot change the order ever. Discretionary dependencies are based on best practices or the way we like working. You might choose to finish the floors before you start painting the windows. We call this soft logic because you can change it if you are late. Changing soft logic can help you when you need to fast-track the work. External dependencies involve people or groups that are outside of your project team. Maybe you are waiting for a government permit to start building the new house. Internal dependencies are within the control of the project team and the manager. You must track both types closely so you do not get a surprise delay. We also use a tool called the Project Management Information System, or the PMIS. This is the software like Microsoft Project or Oracle Primavera that you use daily. The PMIS helps you calculate the dates and print the reports for everyone. It automates the hard math for you so you can focus on leading people. Now let us try some practice questions to see what you have learned today. I will give you a simple question and then a very clear explanation. Think about the different charts and buffers that we just talked about together. I know you will do great on these questions, so let us start now. 1. Which chart is best for showing the schedule to the very busy senior managers? A milestone chart is the best tool for showing high-level goals. Senior managers do not need to see every small task, they only want to see the big dates and major project achievements. 2. What do we call the logic that is required by the physical nature of work? This is called a mandatory dependency or hard logic in the schedule. It is a connection that cannot be broken, like needing a foundation before you can build the rest of a tall building. 3. What method adds buffers to the end of the project to manage resource limits? The critical chain method uses buffers to protect the project finish date. This method focuses on resource availability and uses buffers to manage the uncertainty that happens during the project work. 4. What is the name of the buffer placed where a side path joins the chain? This is called a feeding buffer in the critical chain method today. It protects the main critical chain from delays that might happen on the smaller paths of the project network diagram. 5. What do we call the process of asking, what if a specific risk happens? This is called what-if scenario analysis, and it helps with project planning. By testing different situations in the software, you can see how much the finish date might change if things go wrong. 6. What kind of dependency can you change if you need to finish the work faster? You can change a discretionary dependency, which is also called soft logic. Since these are based on preferences and not physical laws, you can reorder the tasks to save some time when you are late. 7. What system do you use to calculate the schedule and print out visual reports? You use the Project Management Information System, which is also called the PMI SP. This software handles the complex math of the network diagram, so you can see the critical path and the dates clearly. 8. What do we call a dependency that involves a person outside of your team? This is called an external dependency, and it is often out of your control. You must watch these closely, because you cannot force an external group to work faster if they are running behind schedule. 9. What chart uses bars to show the start and finish dates of all tasks? This is called a Gantt chart or a simple bar chart today. It is the most popular way to show a schedule, because it is very easy for the team members to understand their work. 10. What do we call the data that explains how you calculated the project dates? This is called the schedule model data, which supports your whole schedule. It includes all the notes, assumptions, and resource details that you use to create the final project schedule for the team. 11. What is the main difference between resource leveling and the resource smoothing technique? Leveling can change the finish date, while smoothing keeps the finish date. You use leveling when you have strict resource limits, but you use smoothing when the project deadline is the most important thing. 12. If a task must wait for a permit from the city, what dependency is that? This is an external mandatory dependency, because it is required by the law. You cannot legally start the work without the permit, and the permit comes from a group that is not on your team. 13. What happens to the critical path when you use the resource leveling technique? the critical path often changes, and the project duration usually becomes much longer. Because you are moving tasks to match resource availability, the sequence of tasks that determines the end date will shift around. 14. Why do we use a project buffer at the very end of the critical chain? The project buffer protects the final deadline from any delays on the chain. Instead of having extra time on every task, we put it all at the end to manage the total project risk better. 15. What is the name of the connection where you choose the order of work? This is called soft logic, which is also known as a discretionary dependency. It is based on the team's experience or a specific way of working, rather than a physical requirement that cannot be changed. 16. What tool shows the logic of the tasks, but does not use a timeline? A project schedule network diagram shows the logic, without using a calendar. It focuses on how tasks are connected to each other, which helps the manager see the flow of the work very clearly. 17. If you have two tasks that can start at the same time, what is that? This is a start-to-start relationship between two different project tasks today. It means both tasks are allowed to begin on the same day, which can help you finish the project much faster than usual. 18. What is the best way to handle a task that has a very large float? You can delay that task if you need to, because it is not urgent. Tasks with float are not on the critical path, so you can move them to balance your team's workload without hurting the deadline. Welcome to the fifth part of our training, where we will focus on communication and reporting. I am so glad you are still here, because this is where the magic happens. A scheduler must be a great storyteller, who uses data to show the future clearly. You need to share the right information with the right people at the right time. We use a special report called a status report to tell everyone how things are. This report shows what we did last week and what we will do next week. It also lists any big problems or risks that might slow down our project work. You should keep this report very simple, so people can read it in 2 minutes. We also use something called a milestone report, which is very high level for bosses. It shows a list of the big goals and the dates when we reached them. If a goal is late, you should explain why and how you will fix it. This helps the leaders feel safe, knowing that you have a good plan in place. Another important thing is the resource histogram, which is a colorful bar chart today. It shows how many hours each person is working during every week of the project. If you see a very tall bar, it means someone has too much work. You can use this chart to prove that you need more workers to finish. We also have to talk about the project schedule update process, which happens often. You should update your schedule model at least once a week to stay accurate. Enter the actual start dates and the actual finish dates for every finished task. The software will then recalculate the end date based on the real work done. When you update the schedule, you might see that the critical path has shifted. This is why you must check the critical path every time you add new data. A task that was not important before might become critical if it runs very late. Being a good scheduler means you're always looking for these hidden project risks. We also use a tool called a progress report to show the percentage of work. You might say a task is 50% finished or 90% finished today. Be careful with these numbers, because people often guess and they are wrong. It is better to use physical measurements, like the number of bricks laid down. Communication also involves talking to the people who provide the resources for you. These are the functional managers who control the workers in the big company. You must negotiate with them early to make sure your team is ready. If they take a worker away, your schedule will suffer a very big delay. We also need to understand the concept of schedule density for our big exam. High density means you have a lot of details for the work happening very soon. Low density means you have fewer details for the work happening next year. We call this rolling wave planning, and it is a very smart way to work. You do not need to plan every small detail for a task that starts in 2027. Just focus on the details for the next few months and keep the rest simple. As the time gets closer, you add more details to those future project tasks. This saves you a lot of time and keeps your schedule model very clean. You should also keep a schedule change log to record every single update made. This log shows who asked for a change and when the change was approved. It acts like a history book for your project, which is great for learning. If someone asks why the date moved, you can show them the change log. Sometimes you have to give a presentation to the project stakeholders and the owners. Use big charts and clear colors to show the status of the project schedule. Green means everything is on time, and red means you have a big problem. Simple colors help people understand the situation without reading a lot of hard data. Now we will go through our practice questions for this section of the course. Think about how you talk to people and how you show the data clearly. I know you are becoming an expert, so let us look at the questions now. Read the answer and the explanation to make sure you understand the core logic. 1. What report shows the work finished last week and the plan for next week? This is called a project status report, and it is sent out regularly. It provides a quick summary of the recent progress and helps the team stay aligned on the immediate tasks for the coming days. 2. What chart shows the number of hours that each person is working every week? A resource histogram shows the workload of the team members over time. This visual tool helps the manager identify overall location, and it is very useful for planning the resource needs of the project. 3. What do we call the method of planning near work in detail and far work simply? This planning method is known as rolling wave planning in project management. It allows the team to be flexible and avoids wasting time on details that might change before the work actually begins next year today. 4. What is the best way to report progress on a very large and complex project? Using physical measurements is the most accurate way to report the progress. Instead of guessing percentages, you should use real data like the number of units produced or the number of documents fully signed. 5. What should you do every time you update the actual work in the schedule model? You must recalculate the schedule to see the new project finish date. The software will tell you if the delays have pushed the end date, or if you are still on track to finish the project on time. 6. What document tracks the history of all the changes made to the project schedule? This is called a schedule change log, and it lists every single change. It helps the manager explain why the schedule is different now, and provides a clear audit trail for the project stakeholders to review. 7. What does a red color usually mean on a high-level project dashboard report? A red color indicates that a task or a milestone is seriously behind. It is a signal for the management to pay attention and provide help to the project manager to get the work back on track. 8. Who do you need to talk to if you need more workers for your project team? You must talk to the functional managers who control the company resources. Building a good relationship with these managers is important because they decide which workers are available to help you with your project. 9. What is the benefit of a milestone report for the senior project stakeholders? It provides a high-level view of progress without showing too much detail. Stakeholders only care about the big picture, and milestones show them exactly when the major parts of the project will be finished. 10. If you are 50% through the time, but only 30% finished, are you late? Yes, you are running behind schedule because the work finished is too low. You have used half of your time, but you have not finished half of the work, which means your speed is currently much too slow. 11. What do we call the density of the information in a project schedule model? This is called schedule density, and it changes based on the task date. Near-term tasks have high density with many details, while future tasks have low density with only basic information for the project team. 12. How often should a project manager update the schedule with actual work data? A project manager should update the schedule at least once every single week. Frequent updates ensure that the data is always fresh and allows the manager to catch small problems before they become big project disasters. 13. What should you do if the critical path changes after a weekly schedule update? You must analyze the new critical path and tell the team about changes. When the path shifts, different tasks become urgent, so you must make sure everyone knows what the new most important work is today. 14. What is the best way to handle a stakeholder who wants a big schedule change? You must ask them to submit a formal change request for the board. This ensures that the impact of the change is fully studied and prevents people from making small changes that add up to a big delay. 15. Why is a resource histogram better than a simple list of worker names? It shows the timing of the work and highlights when people are too busy. A simple list does not show you when the work happens, but the histogram shows you the exact weeks where you have a resource problem. 16. What part of the status report helps people understand the future of the project? The section on upcoming risks and issues helps people see the future. By talking about what might happen next, you help the team prepare for trouble and keep the project schedule moving forward safely. 17. What do you call the value of work that was actually completed by the team? This is called the earned value of the work finished during the project. It is the best way to measure progress because it looks at the actual value of the tasks that are 100% done. 18. What happens if you do not communicate a schedule delay to your project boss? You will lose the trust of the boss, and the problem will get worse. It is always better to be honest about delays early, so that the boss can help you find more resources or more time to finish. Welcome to the final part of our course, where we talk about closing and lessons learned. I am so proud that you finished all 6 parts of this scheduling exam prep. Closing a project is more than just stopping the work on the final day. You must finish all the paperwork to show that the project is officially done. First, you must make sure all the activities in your schedule are marked finished. Check every single box in your software to ensure nothing was left behind today. If a task is still open, the project cannot be closed by the big boss. This is your last chance to fix any data in your project schedule model. We also need to do a final performance review of the whole project schedule. Compare your final finish date with the very first baseline date you had. Did you finish on time, or was the project much later than you expected? Write down the reasons for any big delays, so you can remember them later. This process of writing down what happened is called collecting lessons learned for everyone. You should meet with your team to talk about what went well and what failed. Maybe a specific type of task always took much longer than you guessed early. By writing this down, you help the next project manager do a better job. All this information goes into the organizational process assets of your big company. These assets are like a library of knowledge for every project in the future. When someone starts a new project, they can look at your old project schedule. They will see your notes and your dates, which helps them plan much better. You also need to release the resources once the project work is totally finished. Tell the functional managers that the workers are ready for a new project now. If you keep people too long, you are wasting the company's money and time. Releasing resources correctly is a sign of a very professional and smart manager. We also have to archive the project documents in a safe and secure place. This includes the schedule baseline, the change logs, and the final status reports. Sometimes people ask questions about a project many years after it has finished. If you have your documents organized, you can find the answers very quickly today. Before you leave the project, you must get a formal sign-off from the owner. This is a document that says the customer is happy with the project work. It also confirms that the schedule goals were met according to the final plan. Once you have this signature, your job on this project is officially complete. You should also celebrate the success with your hard-working project team members today. Managing a schedule is very stressful work, and everyone needs a big thank you. A happy team will want to work with you again on the next big project. Now, let us finish our training with the last set of practice questions. These questions cover the closing process and everything we learned in this course. Read them carefully and think about the big picture of project schedule management. I know you are ready to pass your exam, so let us start these final questions. After the questions, I have a special message for you to help your career. 1. What is the very first thing you should check when closing a project schedule? You must ensure that every single activity is marked as 100% finished. A project cannot be officially closed if there are still tasks that are showing as incomplete in the schedule model. 2. What do we call the meeting where you discuss what went well and what failed? This meeting is called a lessons learned session for the project team members. It is a chance for everyone to share their experiences so that the company can avoid making the same mistakes in the future. 3. Where do you store the final project documents for other managers to see later? You store them in the organizational process assets, which is the company library. These assets help the company grow by keeping a record of all the project data and schedules from the past. 4. What is the name of the formal document that marks the end of the project? This is called the final project report or the official project closure document. It summarizes the whole project performance and provides the proof that the work was finished according to the schedule. 5. Why is it important to release the project resources as soon as work finishes? Releasing resources saves money and lets workers start on other important projects today. A good manager does not hold on to people once their specific tasks are finished and they are no longer needed. 6. What should you compare the final finish date to during the closing process? You should compare the final finish date to the original approved schedule baseline. This comparison tells you exactly how well you performed and shows if your original project guesses were accurate or not. 7. Who must give the final sign-off to show the project schedule is complete? The project sponsor or the customer must give the final sign-off to you. Their signature means they accept the work, and they agree that the project has met all of its scheduled goals. 8. What happens to the schedule baseline after the project is officially closed today? The schedule baseline is archived as a part of the final project records. It is never changed again once the project is done, but it is kept for future reference and for any project audits. 9. What do we call the process of organizing and saving all the project files? This process is called archiving the project records, or project document management today. Keeping files organized helps the company stay safe and ensures that the information is available if a problem arises later. 10. If a task was skipped during the project, what should you do at closing? You must document why it was skipped and get approval to close it. Every item on the activity list must be accounted for, even if the work was not actually done as planned. 11. What part of the lessons learned is most helpful for a brand new scheduler? The notes on how long specific tasks took are the most helpful part. This data helps new schedulers make better guesses when they are building their very first project schedule model for a team. 12. What should you do with the schedule change log when the project finishes? You must include the change log in the final project archive for everyone. It explains the journey of the project schedule and shows why the dates changed from the start to the finish. 13. How do you know if your project schedule was a successful one today? It is successful if you finished the work within the allowed baseline dates. Finishing on time is the main goal of a scheduler, and it shows that you managed the team and the risks very well. 14. What is the benefit of celebrating with the team at the end of the project? Celebrating builds a strong team spirit and makes people want to work together. Acknowledging hard work is important because it makes the team feel valued and proud of the project they just finished. 15. What should you do if the customer is not happy with the final finish date? You should review the change log with him to show why delays happened. Showing the history of approved changes helps the customer understand that the delays were often necessary or were officially agreed upon. 16. What is the last step in the project schedule management process for a manager? The last step is to officially close the project and archive all data. Once the data is saved and the resources are gone, you can officially walk away from the project and start something new. 17. Can you use an old project schedule to help you plan a new project? Yes, you should use old schedules as templates for your new project work. Using a template saves a lot of time and ensures that you do not forget any important activities that were needed before. 18. What do you call the final review of the project schedule performance index? This is the final performance assessment of the project schedule and its results. It gives you a final score on your work and helps you see where you can improve your skills for the next project. You can get my complete practice test link in the description of this video. Please check the first comment for a discount coupon for the complete practice questions. These questions come with full explanations, which will help you get your certification today. Thank you for watching all 6 parts, and I wish you the very best of luck.